Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up at 4 o'clock today, your last chance to enter to take the trip or keep the cash. But before we get to any of that, my friends, time for your daily dose of adrenaline. I saw a post that was forwarded to me by one of our listeners named Tegan. I tried to reach out to the owners, but I have not been able to get a hold of them, so I don't know the full story yet. But I do have this Facebook post here. I want to give you that little disclaimer so that if there's some details of the story missing, perhaps some of our listeners know about it. But apparently there was a saloon in Riverside, Washington. I would have to look for a map to find where Riverside is. Those of you know I'm from the East Coast, and a lot of these places, I don't know where they are. So some of you can make fun of me all you want right now. But here's what this post from the Cattle Prod Saloon says. Dearest friends and family, in honor of keeping things 100% transparent, it is with great sadness and frustration that I write this post. The Cattle Prod Saloon will be closing its doors after tomorrow, August 2nd, 2025. The harsh reality is that doing business in Washington state is no longer sustainable or feasible for small businesses. In the last 2 years, groceries in Washington state have increased a total of 17%. Just in the last 2 months, they have increased 2.2%, making this state rank number 6 in the nation as having the highest grocery cost. Great, we made it through that. We made small adjustments here and there to overcome this. But there's always something else, isn't there? Next up, House Bill 2035 or Senate Bill 5786. This one is a doozy. Proposes an increase of 50% in liquor licenses, permits, and endorsements, including special banquet permits and catering endorsements. What was once $2,500 will now be almost $4,000 a year to do business. At this point, might as well just throw in the towel. But the real kicker is that our insurance has gone up 4% for the next year. And the insurance company is wanting the entire annual premium up front by August 4th. I don't know about you, but I certainly can't pull that kind of money out of thin air. We have fought tooth and nail to be here. But with these increases all across the board, it has become impossible for us to continue. This has nothing to do with how business has been doing as a whole, but entirely with the cost of doing business in Washington state. So go ahead and thank your legislature for this. We are forever grateful for each and every one of you who made this possible for the last 3 years. As a thank you, we're planning on hosting a barbecue at a later date to give back and say our goodbyes. This has been an incredibly hard decision for us to make. Now, I assume this is legitimate. I don't think you go on there to lie about something like that. But once again, I haven't been able to get in touch with the owners, so I can't verify this. But I will say, I had to do something similar myself one time. I ran an event rental company, and during COVID, after 2 years of not being able to do big events, which was our profit, I didn't write a letter like that. I just sold my business to a competitor, sold my mailing list to a competitor, and I sold all my products to somebody else, kept what I wanted, and that was that. And we were done. Just like that. And it wasn't because of anything I did. My business was very, very successful. It was all because of what the government did to my business. One of the saddest days of my life is when I had to close up that business, because as annoying as it was and as many employee problems as I had and as much as costs were going up and you name it, everything else, I liked it. Plus, it kept me in shape. Look how fat I've gotten now. I was in the best shape of my life when running that business, when you're lifting hundreds of pounds a day in bounce houses and other gear. I know exactly what this business owner is going through and exactly what they are talking about. Governor Bob Ferguson signed the largest tax increase in Washington state history into law this year, ushering in sweeping new taxes that impact families, consumers, and businesses alike. The $77.9 billion state operating budget for 2025 to 2027 marks an 8.2% increase in spending, despite Democratic claims of a $16 billion shortfall. You remember that? Oh, we have a $5 billion shortfall. No, it's $7. No, it's 10. No, it's 12. No, it's 14. No, it's 16. No, it's 17. Wait. We're not going to cut anything. Instead, we're just going to cut all the stuff you actually need, but we're going to spend it on other stupid stuff, and we're going to jack up your taxes too. So, what did they hit us with? Oh, let's not forget, they kept that till after Bob Ferguson was elected. We didn't know about any of that. Otherwise, Bob Ferguson probably wouldn't have been elected. Because you would have said Inslee's chosen successor, who was part of this mess, who increased the Attorney General's office of up to what, 700, 800 lawyers they got, and they still farm things out to outside attorneys. That's your money paying for that. The tax package includes tax hikes on sales tax, property tax, gas tax, business and occupation tax, higher fees on services for childcare, fishing licenses. They're trying to bring in $12.2 billion over the next 4 years, and they didn't even cut what they needed to offset what they claim was a $17 billion budget gap. And even after that map, they found out they're still almost $1 billion short. By 2029, the average family of four in Washington is expected to pay up to $2,000 more annually in taxes, a figure that excludes additional costs from gas tax hikes and the ripple effects of the cost of goods. You may not know the name Stephen Moore. Stephen Moore is an economist. He does a lot of stuff with the Trump administration. He was talking to the press in the Oval Office yesterday. They were going over the latest economic numbers. And I'm watching this, and I'm sure any of you out there who are watching the news and saw this presentation said, that's good for everybody else, but not us here in Washington. Listen to what he said. I watched that and I was furious. Absolutely furious. And I'll tell you why, because none of it's hitting us here. It can't hit us here. A lot of the money he's talking about, I did some quick math in my head when I heard that clip when I was driving home last night. A lot of the savings is due to energy costs going down. If you notice, gas prices have gone down in 35 out of 50 states. We're one of the places that keep going up. I drove past the gas station at the end of my neighborhood today, $4.89 a gallon. $4.89 a gallon. We're approaching $5 a gallon. A lot of places in Washington are already over $5 a gallon. Washington's average gallon of gas is $4.40. The national average is $3.17. That's a $1.23 difference. Washington's average diesel price, $5.06. The national average is $3.80. The difference is a $1.26. All of that is because of the Climate Commitment Act. All of that is so 90% of the money they bring in from the Climate Commitment Act can go to businesses and nonprofits, which Democrats are profiting off of, which we have shown you that money trail before, and not actually having anything whatsoever to do with fixing the climate. So every time you go to the grocery store, every time you buy anything, anytime you buy gas, those prices are higher because the Democrats are taking your money. These policies are not making anybody's lives better. In fact, they're making them exponentially worse. You want to hear how much money people are saving in the rest of the country? That was the first term. And I know a lot of you were sitting pretty after the first term Trump was in office, and then all of a sudden your finances took a hit when Biden was in office. Forget inflation for a second here. All the government taxes and everything else that was hitting you, it just got exponentially worse. And has the quality of life gone up here in Washington? I know there are plenty of people who say, well, I'm happy to pay for roads, bridges, police, fire, all that kind of stuff. But unfortunately, none of it's good here. None of it. Our friend Andrea Suarez from We Heart Seattle posted a picture from a grocery store in Auburn. It's a stack. It's the shelf where you have tin foil. And it's like you see in any grocery store. But here's what it is. You see all the tin foil, those boxes, those thin rectangle boxes, 25 square feet of tin foil. They're stacked on the shelf. But on top of the box that's holding all the tin foil, there's one open box of tin foil. And on it, somebody has written, "Do not open another box. Tweakers feel free to grab some." So they get ripped off so often, they are literally opening up a box of tinfoil so that their tinfoil stops getting stolen out of the grocery store. That's how bad it is. That's how bad it is. Okay, how about the roads and bridges? Law enforcement isn't doing well because there's not enough cops. They've been defunded. We're not putting the money into that. Instead, we're actually putting the money into giving the addicts all those needles, needle exchanges, harm reduction. Oh, yeah, let's just give them some pipes, and let's give them the drugs, which is now what Bob Ferguson and crew want to do. Let's just give them all that stuff. Well, it looks like even though you're giving out all this stuff, and they can walk into any health center in King County or Washington or anywhere else and get this stuff for free, they are still stealing it. Still stealing it. When I went to look at the injection sites in Vancouver, which are suicide assistants, there was a drop box for used needles in the middle of the park across the street where all the homeless people lived. And the thing had been welded, fixed, repaired, time and time and time again, because even with the heroin injection site across the street that gives out all the free needles you could possibly want, that's not enough for the addicts, so they would break open the needle drop box to steal more of them. Well, it's not going well in health. It's not going well with the drug problems, the fentanyl, law enforcement. How about transportation? That's a pretty simple one. Well, let's not forget Jay Inslee fired everybody during COVID and didn't do anything about the ferry system falling apart. Instead, he said, we're going to order new ferries, and they're going to be electric ferries, and they're going to be built here in Washington. Governor, we don't have any shipyards that can build those ferries. Oh, okay. Well, then, anybody here do hybrid? We can do some hybrid. Governor, that's going to be a lot of money. You're still using the old boats, and take a long, long time. Not going to get fixed while you're in office. Oh, somebody else's money, somebody else's problem. Do it. I think it's a great idea. Governor, we could order them from another state. No. Then Ari Hoffman will be right about me. According to Como News, passengers in Washington state ferries will soon face higher costs as the Washington State Transportation Commission has approved fare increases. The commission signed off on the proposal this past Wednesday, implementing a 3% fare increase starting October 1st. An additional 3% hike is scheduled for May 1st of this year. In addition to these increases, a summer season surcharge will rise to 35% because what do they want to do? They want to tax all the tourists. Let's get all that tourist money. But what about the people who commute every single day? Screw them. It's their fault for taking the ferry anyway. Can you name one thing in Washington that has gotten better from all these tax increases? No. And how many businesses are closing and closing? The Cattle Prod Saloon is just another example. It's just another chain. I did a public disclosure request during COVID, and I wanted to see how many businesses had closed during COVID. It was in the thousands. In the thousands here in Washington. The bigger number was actually the amount that had moved out of state. It wasn't that they closed, it was that they moved out of state. What, you think just because Amazon leaving Seattle? Oh, the big boys left. It was the little guys, too. If the big boys can't afford to stay here, the little guys for sure can't afford to stay here. And what's their plan? Their plan was, well, we'll tax Bezos and we'll tax all those guys. Bezos moved to Florida, took all his millions with him, took all his billions with him. And now you have a bigger budget gap. You guys are eventually going to run out of other people's money because you are closing the businesses that you rely on to pay your tax revenue. And when that happens, they go after the little guys, which is why everything around here is so expensive. They are so addicted to spending. No amount of money will ever satisfy these guys. The Cattle Prod Saloon. I looked at the pictures on their social media. It looks like a Texas kind of dive bar kind of place. And some food that looks delicious, like most of these dive bars are, some cowboy-themed saloon kind of place. Wish I could have gone there. Wish I had known it existed. But now we'll never know. And how many businesses do you know that aren't there anymore? How many businesses, once they leave, the homeless move in and burn down the building? And it's just been a lot for a while. I was driving home last night on Rainier Avenue in South Seattle. And as I'm driving home, they have installed a homeless hygiene center next to a QFC. Now, for those of you who don't live in the Seattle area, QFC is a usually higher-end grocery store. It's not the highest. It's not an Albertsons or a Whole Foods or something like that, but it's higher than a Safeway, at least the ones near me. This one is now next to a Rite Aid that closed and went out of business. So the hygiene station moved into the Rite Aid. It's been active there for a month or two now, maybe 3 months. I could not believe, I haven't taken Rainier Avenue in a while. I'm taking Rainier Avenue home, and holy cow, the amount of people doing the fentanyl fold on the sides of the street, the amount of garbage, the amount of shopping carts, the amount of trash, the amount of people at each bus stop along that route. What is that, the 7 line over there? I don't take mass transit. But whatever that route is, every single bus stop was filled with drug addicts and homeless people. That's what these policies have done. Have they helped anybody? They made a lot of politicians richer. They've made a lot of former politicians richer, but they're not helping anybody here in Washington. And it's the most frustrating thing because there's only so much the federal government can do over local control of a place like this. It's an absolute disaster. And today, I got crushing news. I spoke to my friend Glenn Morgan from We the Governed, and I spoke to my friend Jim Walsh, representative from Aberdeen, chair of the Washington GOP. And you know, for a long, long time, what I've been saying, I said, if there's voter fraud, prove it to me. If there's illegals voting, prove it to me. Until then, I'm going to say regular voters aren't showing up. Well, I found out today I was right. I was right that voters aren't showing up because they've been so disenfranchised. But I also found out today that the illegals are voting in even bigger numbers than we even thought. Numbers so huge that we can't even comprehend how big those numbers are. Glenn's going to join us at 4 today, right after our Take the Trip or Keep the Cash contest. And Jim is going to join us at 5:30 today for 2 different sides of the same story. Because what's frustrating to me is even if we were doing everything right, even if we were ballot harvesting, even if we were all getting out there and voting, and judging by the latest returns, you aren't. This doesn't let you off the hook for that, people. I'm still going to yell at you about all that. That even if we were doing everything right, the deck is stacked against us. Absolutely stacked against us. But the good news is there is a solution on the table. And you're going to hear it during both of those interviews as well. Because for me, I want Washington to succeed. I want Washington to be great again. And until we fix this system, the stuff you see on the streets of Seattle and King County and Western Washington, that's the way it's going to be from now on. The King County Regional Homeless Authority is just a King County export homeless program. Send it out to all the other cities outside of Seattle. That's what we want to do, and that's what they've been doing. What the election results showed us is that people around here go, yeah, more social programs. Yeah, I'm a renter. Tax all those rich people, not realizing it's affecting them. When you guys double down on these failed programs and triple down on these failed programs, who are you going to blame? There is one Republican in office in Seattle, Ann Davidson, who's a former Democrat. You going to blame her? You going to blame her? Everybody else around here is a far left progressive Democrat, even the people who pretend to be moderates. You going to keep blaming Republicans? Or are you going to go, something else is going on here, and we need to fix the system itself before anything can actually change? You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, my friends, it's Friday. We're going to put a little smile on your face heading into the weekend with a crazy story about how PETA apparently is mad that Bouy the mascot didn't get eaten by that grizzly bear. We'll tell you all about it when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show. We don't get a lot of good news in our part of the world, so when we do, we want to cry it, scream it, shout it from the rooftops. This weekend, you should get a ticket to go see the Mariners because Ichiro Suzuki is having all the Hall of Fame induction ceremonies right here in Seattle. They already did all the stuff in Cooperstown, but they're having a whole series of events this weekend out at T-Mobile Park to celebrate Ichiro Suzuki's induction into the National Baseball Hall of Fame. Now, apparently tonight, hang on, I want to make sure I get my promotions correct. Friday evening, the first 20,000 fans will receive a 2004 replica jersey commemorating the night Ichiro set the MLB single-season hit record with 262 hits. Fans will also have the chance to take photos with Ichiro's Hall of Fame plaque on Friday and Saturday. Now, I believe they're having a special number retirement ceremony on Saturday night before the game, and on Sunday, the first 20,000 fans will receive a replica of his Cooperstown plaque, which actually looks really, really cool. They were posting some pictures of it on social media today. Truly one of the greats in the game. Very, very well-deserved. So if you can, go see the Mariners this weekend. In fact, maybe I'll go out there on Sunday, check out the game. That'd be a lot of fun. Be one of the first 20,000 people to get one of those plaques. Yeah, that'd be a lot of fun. Meanwhile, what's not a lot of fun, PETA has no sense of humor whatsoever. The people for eating tasty animals. Oh, I'm sorry. The people for the ethical treatment of animals, those guys. So you saw the video. We spoke about this earlier in the week, where over the weekend, the Kraken mascot, Bouy, the methed out troll that they have over there. So Bouy was doing some kind of promotional event, and he was fly fishing. And all of a sudden, this grizzly bear comes out of the woods and starts charging at Bouy. And for reasons known only to the bear and God above, that bear stopped and didn't horribly maim the Bouy. It stopped short. So what happens? PETA sent the Kraken CEO a letter on Thursday asking the team not to go fly fishing because it's mean to the fish. Seriously? This is what you guys took from this. Not one of your animals that you guys love almost ate somebody. But you got to stop with the fly fishing. It's cruel to animals. I'm going to guarantee you this. Bouy did not catch anything. You can't see anything in that head, right? You just can't. But they're going after Bouy? They're going after the Kraken, you nut jobs, you crackheads.
Well, it's not just that. They're going after Make-A-Wish kids also. Because remember, this was like a whole friggin' Make-A-Wish thing.
You beat me to it. You beat me to it. Yeah, but thank you for calling that out. So this was part of as Mike said, this was part
PETA
of...
hates kids.
PETA hates children. People for eating tasty animals. Yes, right. So PETA was upset about this thing, which the whole thing was they had one of the Kraken players out there. A kid asked to go fly fishing with them. This was part of a whole Make-A-Wish thing. And by the way, yesterday, I want to thank KVI Nation. So yesterday during the show, the goal that we set at the beginning of the show was 6 million, but then I said, you know what? We can get 7 million miles for the Make-A-Wish kids. Would you like to know how many KVI Nation raised? 8.5 million. 8.5 million together with our partners in this event. That's because of you guys. You did a spectacular job. So now what we've established is PETA hates children, PETA hates the Make-A-Wish Foundation, and PETA hates the Kraken. You know, I thought I hated Bouy the mascot, but apparently PETA hates him even more than I do, which is definitely the craziest thing of all time. Plus, he's a troll. You saying mythical creatures aren't animals too? I don't think you guys are really fulfilling your mission statement. We go to the Warrior Injury Law studio line, take a call from our friend Matt G. Matt G, what's going on, man?
Okay, Ari, I never call in with anything serious, but this is serious. It's Ichiro.
What did I say?
Ichiro.
What did I say?
Not that.
I think I just say Ichiro. So you want me to say Ichiro is what you want me to say?
Ichiro.
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 Ichiro. Dude, I can barely speak English. You're trying to get me to speak Japanese now?
But you're in baseball. You know this. One of the best hitters of all time.
Very fair.
Come on.
That is very fair. That is very fair.
Deal with enough transplants around here.
That is very, very fair. Okay, we'll try this again.
And also,
We'll say this weekend is the Hall of Fame induction ceremony locally for Ichiro Suzuki. Did I get that right?
Yes, just speed it up a little bit, and you'll have it on. Perfectly.
Thank you, Matt.
But also, though, let me just jump in here. I rarely jump in on a phone call. Sorry, Matt. Like Kanye, you're Taylor Swift. It's like, I'll let you finish. I'll let you finish. I'll let you finish. Beyonce had the best video ever. It's just Ichiro. Just like Prince. Like one word. Like
Ichiro.
one word. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just.
What was I saying?
Well, you keep using his full name.
Okay, I'm with you.
It's just
the
single,
Ichiro. Just the Ichiro. That's it.
Just the one thing. Again, it's like, tell me you're a transplant without like right before Matt called, I had a little fit in here. I'm like, stop it. Stop calling him that.
Okay. All right. I stand rebuked by everybody. Matt, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law studio line, take a call from Ian in Tacoma. Ian, what's going on?
I'm not too concerned about PETA hating on Bouy. I do think he is a terrible mascot, but these are the same people that euthanized all the animals they, quote, rescued after Katrina and didn't know that you don't put lobsters in fresh water.
Oh, I forgot about that. You know what you just reminded me of? Wasn't it the PETA CEO who got caught with all the cats that they had euthanized, throwing them in a dumpster?
On top of that, she also got busted for she's a diabetic, and so she needs insulin. It comes from horses. Penn and Teller busted her on that one. And her excuse was, well, I need my life to save the animals.
Oh, that's
so...
Oh, my God. That's like the Democrats who say, I need my private security so I can work on defunding the police for everybody else, right?
Exactly.
Oh, delicious. I mean, by that, I mean the animals, right? Exactly. Ian, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, President Trump negotiates another peace deal at the White House and is getting nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize yet again. The winning continues. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Well, since I just got called out by all my friends for my mispronunciation, I got another word I'm going to attempt here. And you can make fun of me about this one, too. So today, President Trump signed a peace agreement between Azerbaijan and Armenia. Now, most of you can't even find those places on a map. But basically, this is yet another peace agreement negotiated by President Trump, Marco Rubio, and the Trump administration. In fact, most of the high marks on this go to Marco Rubio himself. Question: would you guys want to see J.D. Vance, Marco Rubio on the ticket for 2028? Or do you want to see Marco Rubio, J.D. Vance? Or do you want to see Marco Rubio, Ron DeSantis? Or Marco Rubio, who else we got around here? Tulsi Gabbard. Joe Kent. Let's throw out all the names. Let's just keep throwing them out. Is there somebody you want to say? I think Marco Rubio needs to be on that ticket in 2028, whether it's for VP or the top spot. I really, really do. Let me know what you think. 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. In fact, if Marco Rubio runs, he doesn't even need a vice president or a secretary of state or a secretary of defense or anything else. He'll just do all the jobs himself, including janitor of the White House. He'll even be his own Secret Service protection. So President Trump signs yet another peace deal, and the press secretary listed all the wins he's had in foreign agreements so far.
The president has now ended conflicts between Thailand and Cambodia, Israel and Iran, Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of the Congo, India and Pakistan, Serbia and Kosovo, and Egypt and Ethiopia. This means President Trump has brokered, on average, about one peace deal or ceasefire per month during his 6 months in office.
That's huge. Most presidents start a war per month while they're in office. But in this case, it's peace through strength, but it's something else. It says, where's the low-hanging fruit? You guys are fighting? How about we work this out? Let's do a few little concessions here and there between everybody. You want to do business with the U.S.? Here's what you need to do business with the U.S. Boom, you get a peace deal. And it's working every single time. It really, really is. It's insane to watch how well this is working. But what's funny is all the pushback. No matter what President Trump does, nobody ever gives him the credit he's due. From the Democrats, from the international community, nobody really does. Now, Azerbaijan and Armenia, both presidents, both prime ministers, said they're nominating President Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize. What is that, like the 6th nomination this term? He should have gotten one for the Abraham Accords. Didn't get one back then. You think they're going to give it to him this time? Probably not. But the winning continues. Meanwhile, Democrats are having their little petty fights. So the Democrats in Texas are still hiding out in Illinois, claiming that they're stopping the perversion of democracy or the destruction of democracy and stopping gerrymandering. You know, I looked at the two maps, by the way, between Texas, what they want to do, and what it looks like now. Right now, it looks like it is gerrymandered. There's this weird, I don't know what you'd call it, this weird line running across the state from San Antonio to Austin or something. And I'm looking at this and going, those guys are really, really far apart. What are you even thinking here? They're actually putting it back together. Why are the Democrats freaking out? Because they can't gerrymander most of the blue states anymore. They're so gerrymandered. Forget Illinois, the entire New England area. It's so gerrymandered. There's like no votes you can actually get rid of. There's no Republican votes you can actually get rid of over there. It's so gerrymandered already. So they know that if the Republicans do this in Texas and the Republicans do this in other states as well, what's going to happen is the Democrats don't even have any way of fighting back. So today, Texas said we're going to cut off the direct deposits to these Texas lawmakers, these Texas Democrats. You have to come pick up your checks in person, doing everything they can to get them back to the state. Everything they possibly can. This is for show. This is absolutely for show, and nobody's really believing it. Nobody's really buying it, especially when you get a report like this out of the New York Post. Representative Jasmine Crockett, who is trying to become the leader of the squad, the leader of the Democrat Party, all she does is yell, by the way, this is our fault that she's a bigger deal than she was. Do you know why? Just like with AOC. We go, look at the crazy, look at the crazy, look at the crazy. And what happens is everybody then looks at the crazy. And when they look at the crazy, they get household recognition. And then their name gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And then guess what? They're in Congress the rest of their lives. Did drawing attention to Nancy Pelosi help us? How about Chuck Schumer? How about AOC? How about any of these lunatics? No, of course not. Now you're doing the same thing with Mamdani. Mamdani's blowing everybody away in the polls in New York because there's no such thing as bad PR. Nobody's even talking about Cuomo or Silwa. Definitely not Silwa. Or Eric Adams. Nobody's even talking about any of them. Good or bad, all the press is with Mamdani. So Representative Jasmine Crockett, who I love the New York Post writing, the liberal loudmouth has rocketed to fame since taking office in January 2023 as a fiery antagonist of the Republican president and his allies. But like we find out with most Democrats, when the cameras aren't on her, her staff says she's a horrible human being, that she doesn't even show up most of the time. Quote, it is widely known that she's not nice to staff, and it's just not really a dedicated member focused on constituents. She is focused almost exclusively on being an influencer, not a member of Congress. A third source who worked with Crockett described her as all diva, no wow. I don't even know what that means, but that doesn't sound good. Does it surprise anybody? As I say all the time, it seems like these new members of Congress, what do they want to do? They want to be influencers. They're just using Congress to up their numbers, like Marjorie Taylor Greene, like AOC, like Crockett, like Madison Cawthorn. Remember that guy? He was the worst example of that. If you guys want to be influencers, go be influencers. Leave our politics alone because you're not making anything better around here. And see, I can be bipartisan and call out this nonsense on both sides of the aisle. When we come back, my friends, big news of a settlement between Disney and Gina Carano. Does this mean she's going to be in the Mandalorian movie? We'll tell you what's going on when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KBI. Seems like the world is healing a little bit. Is Disney finally saying no more of this woke garbage and trying to put things back together and undo some past wrongs? Gina Carano was fired for her political opinion. Let's be real about it. She posted a graphic about the Holocaust and freedom of speech, which, by the way, wasn't anti-Semitic. And maybe the message didn't resonate so well, but they didn't like that they saw her as Republican, so they fired her from The Mandalorian. How do I know this was political that they did this? Pedro Pascal, who plays The Mandalorian, posts political stuff, says political stuff all the time. They didn't get rid of him, and his role would have been the easiest one to recast because he can't show his face. I'm not saying you should get rid of him. I enjoy him in that Mandalorian TV show. But they got rid of Gina Carano. At the time, it was being rumored/reported. She was getting her own spin-off, and she lost all that, so she sued Disney for wrongful termination, and they settled for an undisclosed amount yesterday. Now, mind you, is this Disney trying to make things right again? Well, right now, every single Democrat is calling everybody a Nazi and using those terminology all the time. Kind of ridiculous to say, well, this is why we fired her for, and you're still working with all these other people. Yeah, I think the universe is healing a little bit. But there's something else, and you tell me if I'm reading too much into this. Last night, Greg Gutfeld from Fox News went on Jimmy Fallon's show. And this is a win-win situation for Jimmy Fallon. Jimmy Fallon doesn't really get roped in with the other late-night hosts, the way that Colbert, Kimmel, Myers, because they all do political stuff. You got Jimmy Fallon, who's more vaudeville, I'd say. I actually find some of his skits kind of funny. Some of his shtick is kind of funny. Those are the only things I usually see trending for not political reasons. But it's been a while since I saw any of that. The whole model is dying. The two of them had this great interaction last night. I actually couldn't cut it the right way because if I did in any way, it would actually be kind of cheating you out of the experience. I'll share the clip online. What it was Greg Gutfeld telling the story about how they were both drunk one time in this, what sounds like an illegal bar. They've been friends for actual years. Look, for Jimmy Fallon, he's getting the guy who's beating him in the ratings on his show, and they can't get mad at him because he's just doing what the other guys do. Well, this is a political guy. He's a talking head. I'm bringing him on the show. Oh, he's from Fox. Oh, no. I actually think this is all win-win for Jimmy Fallon. I think if anybody's going to survive whatever's going on with late night right now, it's probably going to be Jimmy Fallon, because some people from Gutfeld go, oh, that's really nice you had our guy on. Let's watch the rest of your show and see if we like what we see. And for Gutfeld, you're going to an audience that probably doesn't even know who Gutfeld is right now. It's win-win for everybody. And that's what you get by being bipartisan with these shows, is you get new audience, you get new people to listen to your show. That's what happens with this kind of stuff, which is why sometimes we have our segment when the right gets it wrong. To be like, yeah, we can call out our own side equally. So, yeah, this is all good stuff. These are all good developments. We head on over to the Warrior Injury Law text line. And I asked you guys what you would want to see, who you would want to see on the ticket in 2028. Got some interesting suggestions here. So from Robin Lakewood, he says, protocol says JD for president, Marco or DeSantis for VP. He says, can Trump run as VP? No, Trump cannot run as VP because if something happens to the president, then Trump becomes the president and you got issues there. So, no, you can't do that. A lot of love for DeSantis, by the way. This one here from Daniel, he says, if DeSantis isn't on the ticket, it's a disappointment. From Johnny, DeSantis and whoever he picks, period. Yeah, 1,000%. Here's another interesting one. Trey Gowdy? Is that for VP? It just says Trey Gowdy. They just want Trey Gowdy just running by himself. No, Marco Rubio is the only one who can run by himself and do all the jobs at the same time. This one here from Forrest Cat says Vance and Caroline Leavitt. She will be a great successor to J.D. Vance in 2036 and the first woman president. Okay, I haven't heard anybody saying Caroline Leavitt. That's an interesting pick there, that one. If you guys have a suggestion
She's a child.
Yeah, she's like, what is she, like 26, 27?
Yeah.
If that? Something?
You got to be 35, friend.
Right. I don't think the math
Call me
even
back
works.
when you can buy cigarettes.
The math doesn't even work for that one. Or better, call me back when you can rent a car without paying the extra fee. There we go. Oh, got that one right there. I mean, don't get me wrong. We like Caroline Leavitt a lot, but still. Okay. So if you guys have any other suggestions, you call or text at 206-421-5757. This one from Dave in Forest Hill. He says, I think the Dems in Texas are flipping out because they flooded Texas with illegals so they could ensure electoral college win and take Congress. Whoopsie, Trump is way ahead of them. Yeah, I think you're not wrong. Oh, they're so brave. Sleeping in those 5-star hotels in Illinois, getting room service every night. So brave. So brave. When we come back, my friends, if you want to travel like the Democrats, you get our chance to be part of our Take the Trip or Keep the Cash. Your last chance, as a matter of fact. This is the last time we're doing the contest. So make sure you're listening at 4 o'clock for the keyword. Plus, got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, Glenn Morgan tells us exactly how many illegal aliens are voting in our elections here in Washington. But before we get to any of that, my friends, you work hard. You need a getaway or perhaps some financial relief? Well, we've got your last chance to be part of KVI's Take the Trip or Keep the Cash. That's right. This week you can get away to Japan, have sushi in Shibuya, check out the temples in Kyoto, and maybe see some cherry blossoms or have a chance at $3,000 cash. Now, guys, we're at the end of the contest. This is the last day for the contest. So I hope you got it right now, but just in case, I'm going to give you the details one more time. All you have to do is text the keyword I give you, and just the keyword I give you, not your name, not your phone number, not your address, not Ari Hoffman. You are the most beautiful, handsomest man I have ever seen in my life, despite that little belly you've grown and the receding hairline. Just the keyword. You text that to the phone number I give you. You do not email it to me. You do not call me. You do not DM me on social media. You just send it to the text number, and we'll get you in our daily drawing to get a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card, and you could win the trip or keep the cash with KVI. Today's word is roam, as in you can roam downtown Seattle. Yes. You can roam like they're saying right now. That's not the city, not the place. It's wandering around kind of roam. R-O-A-M. R-O-A-M. Text that to 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. You have from now until 5 p.m. to enter, and make sure you do, because this is your last chance to enter. Your next chance at winning will be next year when KVI's Summer of Fun returns. Don't forget, enter the keyword ROAM to 206-421-5757. And don't forget to check out danielsbroiler.com to reserve a table, place your takeout or delivery order, and so much more. Well, my friends, for a very, very long time, we've been discussing the question of whether or not illegal aliens are actually voting in our elections here in Washington. We can assume all we want that they are. We've seen small cases where they are, but they haven't really been anything to sway an election, or at least the data hasn't shown that there's been anywhere near enough of that to sway an election. However, a friend of ours that we trust on the show here, whose data is always beyond reproach and who researched things up the wazoo, has discovered that it may be far worse than we ever thought. Joining us now to discuss on the Warrior Injury Law studio line from We the Governed, Glenn Morgan. Thanks for being back with us today, buddy.
Yeah, Ari, thank you so much for having me on.
Now, I know that when one of these illegal alien criminals is arrested, people usually go looking, and they say, is this person also registered to vote? Especially after we know that we have motor voter laws where when people register a car or get a driver's license, they're automatically registered to vote. We had a sex offender who registered a white panel van. No kidding. Who we actually found Social Security cards and other things on him when he was arrested. Now, a lot of these names sound similar, so it's hard to figure out which one's which, but a lot of people go looking to see if they're registered to vote. In some cases, we believe they are. You've been doing a lot of research on this. What have you found?
Yeah, and I mean, that issue's been ongoing in our state, by the way, going back about 15 years or so. When we used to, other activists, when we cared about voter integrity, we would pull up the jury denial or when you would reject jury summons, because only people who go on a jury, you have to be in the voter pool in order to be chosen for the jury. And one of the legitimate reasons to say I can't be on the jury is that I'm not a U.S. citizen. And so that was one of the early ways years ago that we used to prove that all these non-U.S. citizens are registered to vote. And it became embarrassing. So what the state decided to do is make it illegal to get those records anymore. And so that game of whack-a-mole, where you're actually trying to expose the truth, and then the state decides that they're going to prevent you from being able to get any information to make them to expose the truth, has been a constant source of problems. The reason why I produced this video recently is this was my effort a few weeks ago as I was digging in, and I thought we have the SAVE Act, which is passed the House, and it's in front of the Senate now at the federal level to deal with proof of citizenship for voting. And we have the executive orders that's come out of the Trump administration to do similar things. And I was wondering if there was any effort at the local county level to actually comply with these statutes and the laws, or how they were getting ready to comply, because Bob Ferguson, Nick Brown, and Steve Hobbs, of course, all sued the federal government because they don't want to comply with any of these efforts to deal with voter citizenship or anything like that. Right? They're fighting it along with about 19 other states. But the question is, this law is probably going forward, or some version of it. How prepared are we? How far out of compliance are we? So that was my original intention, was to look into that. And it turns out there are some really good auditors in the state of Washington who were starting to think, how do we comply with this? Writing's on the wall. What do we do in our state? How close are we, or how far off are we? And so for the first time, to my knowledge, ever in state history, because I don't think this data has ever been collected before, and I think this has been a willful neglect by the Secretary of State for going back decades, probably. But this data, nobody apparently who works there ever bothered to look at it. But they accidentally started coming across the fact that when they added some columns, some data-linked columns in the vote list for Franklin County. That's really where I originally stumbled on it. And what they were doing is they were adding the columns of, do you have a Social Security number, right? What is it? And do you have a driver's license and a Social Security number? And that's when they realized, holy cow, 14% of our voters don't have Social Security numbers at all. Like, there's no way to prove that they're citizens one way or another. And so then they thought, well, maybe we're an outlier. So they were looking at comparative counties, and they looked at 29 counties data. And it turns out this problem is pervasive and universal in all the counties they've looked at. And that was about 1 million vote records. And so essentially 14%, 1 in 7, give or take, of the voters in the state of Washington that are registered to vote right now have no social numbers of any kind, and there's no way that you can validate that they're citizens at all in the current system. Now, here's where it gets worse, is that it's very likely, because our state doesn't require you to have a social number in order to register you to vote. Some of those people are probably legal, but the Secretary of State's office for years now, over 10 years, has told us repeatedly that they use the Social Security Administration ID verification system to make sure that only citizens are on these voter rolls. Well, that's just a lie. They don't do that at all, because if they did, they would know that 750,000 people in Washington state that are registered to vote you can't check them at all. There's no checking of any kind. And what's worse than this, though, is that probably some of these people are legal voters, but they just don't have any information in the system to verify if they are. But we know that they've been handing out Social Security numbers in Wenatchee and Seattle and the Social Security Administration offices for a long time in order for non-U.S. citizens here to get SNAP benefits and Apple Health benefits. And in order to do that, you have to have some kind of a social number. Real or not, you at least have to enter something. This report that I had on the 14% does not include those. Those people, like the convicted felon that had the van, he would show up as a legal voter and wouldn't even be on this list that I ran. So that's in addition to the problem that we have, that there is nobody, there's no way to verify anything about these people at all. Are some of them non-U.S. citizens? Absolutely. Are all of them non-U.S. citizens? Unlikely. You know, if you dig into it and try to clean it up, you'll probably find that some of them are U.S. citizens. They just are so screwed up in the records that there's no way for anybody there to know, and nobody there wants to know. And that's the bigger problem. And I think that the challenge that we have, and I outline this pretty well in the video, is that we've willfully created a system in the state of Washington that prevents people from trying to actually clean up the voter rolls. Everything has been designed to make them as difficult to manage and to maintain and to be honest as possible. And that's a willful choice. The legislature's been involved in that. The Attorney General's office has been involved in it. And the Department of Licensing is right up to their eyeballs in it because they register most of the people that register to vote in the state of Washington. And we know from whistleblowers that I've interviewed on before, had these videos years ago, plus internal whistleblowers that are terrified of going public on it, that they register non-U.S. citizens to vote every single day they go to office. Yeah, every single day. Mm-hmm. So one of the questions is, how do you, beyond this list here, how do you prove or fix or address this issue? And one of my asks in that video is that, you know, for the states like Washington that are hostile to voter roll cleanup and have no desire to fix their voter rolls, and a political legal structure that prevents people like good auditors who work in our state that do want to clean it up, prevents them from doing this. The Homeland Security can help us out a lot because they maintain a list of non-U.S. citizens, whether they're here on, even those who are here legally, like H-1B visa, worker, green card holders, people like that. Just make those lists public now in the states like Washington where we refuse to actually address this issue so that we can actually look and realize the true scope of the challenge that we face with our voter registration process and not just pretend like there's nothing to see here.
I have so many questions. Many questions.
Keep jumping in.
So let's start with this one. Okay. So we're talking with Glenn Morgan from We the Governed, who has uncovered that the data is an absolute mess regarding our voting system here in Washington, that possibly 1 out of every 7 people in Washington here, there's no Social Security number, there's no records for them, and we don't even know if they're citizens or not that can vote. So here's a question I have. When I did a deep dive into whether or not the homeless were voting here in Seattle, what I found out was that tons of ballots were being sent to the homeless. Now, mind you, this is back in 2019, 2020, that tons of ballots were being sent to the homeless, but not that many were actually being turned in. Are these people actually voting, or are they just registered to vote?
That's an excellent question. And the vast majority of these, about 70% plus, are active voters. So this isn't just some inactive voter list. This is active, regular voters who vote all the time.
70%. Okay. So
give or take. Keep in mind, there's a few counties that they hadn't had the data on it. And you and I are prohibited by law, multiple laws actually, from having direct access to this list, or at least these columns in this list.
Well, now we know why.
And it's actually, and to be fair, there's a legitimate reason not to, because it includes social numbers, includes driver's license numbers, and so you can use it for bad purposes, right? Or somebody could. And so that's why you and I could never get it. That's why I never would be able to get it under any circumstances, except for those who are allowed to see stuff like this. They got it, and that's the discovery. And so I was basing the information on their reviews of these 29 counties. And something I didn't mention earlier, but that's even worse, is that of this, so you extrapolate this out, that's 750,000, well, it's almost 750,000, it's about 710,000, assuming the bigger counties aren't even worse, which King County could be far worse. But that's a lot of voters. That's not a de minimis problem. That's quite significant. But on top of that, there was a further data subset in here that would extrapolate out to about 25,000. They came across about 5,000, so that'd be about 25,000-ish voters that don't have any proof of any ID of any kind. Like no ID's ever been provided. They don't have a social number. They don't have a driver's license number. They don't have anything. And that's never been legal at any time ever in the history of the state of Washington. So how the hell did they get registered to vote? And they're voting too. And it could very well be screwed up incompetence and stupidity at the Votwa or the Secretary of State's office or somewhere else where they just need to go back and fix this. But the point is, nobody cares or is looking. There is no active effort at all by a single person at the Secretary of State's office or Votwa to actually fix this. All they want to do is protect a narrative that says, trust us, there's nothing to see here. But when they have systems that they claim that they're using that can't possibly be used to fix this issue, then we know that it's not truthful, and they're unwilling and clearly terrified to actually look and see what needs to be fixed. And that's why, we're in this situation where Homeland Security controls these lists. Our state can't put a lid on this and pretend like it doesn't exist. The feds clearly have these lists. I tried to get them back in 2018, 2019 during the first Trump administration. They refused to give it to us. But it's a different game now, and there's different people working there, and they have a little different awareness of the problem based on the Department of Justice announcements of investigations, the executive order, and the SAVE Act that's in process right now at the federal Senate. So it looks to me like they can save us a lot of time. Just go public with those lists. Let us crowdsource it, and we'll start to quantify the problem that truly does exist, that everybody in state government here wants to pretend like it doesn't exist, even though there's no way Bob Ferguson and Nick Brown, our Attorney General, they know this is happening because both of them, now Nick Brown and Bob Ferguson, they're in the same office building that Department of Licensing is. And that's been the black hole of voter registrations in the state for ever since the Motor Voter Act. And it got worse after 2018 when Inslee decided to fire the head of the Department of Licensing for daring to cooperate with the feds by sharing them information about who were non-U.S. citizens that had driver's licenses, which was compliant with federal law, but they fired him because they want to conceal that information from the state. And, the truth is we don't know the full size and scope of this problem because it's concealed, it's hidden, and it's every time somebody does try to get into this, they threaten litigation, they threaten you with jail time, they threaten to put you in prison, fire you, do whatever if you dare to look at it. That's been the modus operandi of every single person in state government in a position of authority. And if any of them dare to kind of get off that reservation and expose the truth, then they lose their jobs. And so this is something that needs to be addressed. And normally I don't like to go to the feds for anything, but in this case, they could actually do us a great service just by going public with these lists so that we could see just what kind of a challenge and a problem that we have in order to clean it up.
Right, because let's play devil's advocate for a second here, even though they really don't deserve it. But let's do this for a second, okay?
No, it's always good to do that.
Yeah. We'll just give this a little go. So you and I both know that a lot of times you get contacted, get contacted by people who go, Ari, I got multiple ballots in the mail. And it's because there's so many different lists that they're pulling off of that's going to continuously happen. So let's say the easiest thing for them to say is, Glenn, half these people don't exist. Half these people are doubles, triples, quadruples. We're cleaning up the whole list. That would really be the easiest thing for them to do, and we're putting in safeguards so this doesn't happen anymore. But the fact that they won't even let us look at the lists shows something really messed up is going on. It's not because they're trying to protect Social Security numbers, because what they could do is they could say, okay, Glenn Morgan, bring 3 people. We're going to give you the information. You get X amount of days to review it, and you're going to be under guard the whole time, and you're going to be watched the whole time, and you can't take this data with you. They could, in theory, do that, but they're not even doing that.
No, and they don't want to, and they don't want to. This was the reason why 4 years ago I started the Washington Voter Research Project, when a lot more people suddenly cared about this, because I've been involved in this for a long time, but it used to be just a very wonkish and kind of limited subset of weird people like me that cared about this stuff back in the day. However, when a lot more people wanted to get involved in this after 2020, we started the Washington Voter Research Project, and the whole point of that was to recognize that our lists were substantially defective, and we had to go out door to door to verify that the lists were accurate before we did anything about it, so that we had the additional evidence to back up what we were saying. And what did we get for that? I got auditors out of Spokane and Clallam County and King County and many others threatening us. We got the Thurston County auditor and the Secretary of State and the AG's office making noise about trying to file lawsuits against us for daring to do voter challenges when we would go up and there's a hole in the ground and 4 people are voting from it and the neighbor said no one's ever lived there. And when we would bring these issues up, all we ever got have been legal threats, harassment, denials, all kinds of stuff that has been brought up. And this is not what you do when you care about transparency or honesty in elections. And, one of the more disturbing elements of this, though, too, is that you get all these non-answers. You go to the Secretary of State's website, and they'll tell you that the state validates these voters. But that makes it sound like, the Secretary of State's doing that. No, there's nobody there at the Secretary of State that does that. No one. What they do is, if you actually dig into it eventually, you'll finally figure out that they say the state because they actually let Department of Licensing, which is the black hole of all of our election problems, they claim that they do it, but they don't do it either. Because if they did, they would know that at least, 750,000 people there's no way to even validate who they are or what kind of ID they have or anything. Now, by the way, they got away with that because they've made it legal in Washington State to register people to vote with just what they call an attestation letter. You just say, trust me, I have no proof or evidence, but I'm a U.S. citizen and I can legally vote. And that's all you have to do.
Crazy, crazy stuff. This is why we need people like Glenn Morgan from We the Governed. You should check out his videos over on YouTube because he is the only one looking into this kind of stuff. Glenn Morgan, thank you so much for exposing it. Everybody should go watch the video over on YouTube right now. Thank you so much for joining us today.
All right, thank you so much for covering it.
Always a pleasure. We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.
Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, you have just over 30 minutes to enter that keyword for your last chance to take the trip or keep the cash. I'll be nice and give it to you one more time because it's the last day. ROAM, R-O-A-M. Text that to 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757 for your last chance to take the trip or keep the cash with KVI. I got the oddest email today. Absolutely oddest email. It's from Washington's Hate Crimes and Bias Incidents Hotline. Do you remember the odyssey of this mess? Shall we back up and fill you in on all? Let's go through the whole odyssey, shall we? Bob Ferguson, then Attorney General, announces we're going to have a Hate Crimes and Bias Incident Hotline. And a lot of us said, isn't that what 911 is? And they said, no, this is for hate crimes and bias. Specially trained operators, specially trained people to respond to hate crimes and bias. And we said, isn't that what 911 is for? They said, no, you don't understand. Super specially trained people to discuss bias here in Washington. And we said, well, this sounds like it's going to be nonsense. And really, we knew what it was about. It's about people being able to report conservatives. That's what it is, another snitch line like they had during COVID. But worse than that, it doesn't actually do anything. We said odds are this thing is going to be used so that they can gather data and say, hate crimes are off the chart, and we need more money to address the bias and hate from those evil Republicans towards us Democrats here in Washington. Now, before this thing went live, there was a whole bunch of other incidents that happened. So, for example, back in 2024, when the encampment of all the Hamasniks was happening at the University of Washington, I had reached out to the governor's office and said, what's the governor? Not the governor, excuse me. I had reached out to the governor's office, but I reached out to Bob Ferguson's office. And I said, what's the attorney general going to do about all these hate crimes happening on campus, all these assaults happening on campus, et cetera, et cetera? And Brianna Aho, who is his VP, his communications person, and still his communications person, by the way, responded to me, well, you have the hate crimes and bias hotline. They can report stuff there. I do a little typing, head on over to the website, and it tells me, and this was in April of 2024, remember, it will be live in July of 2025 as part of a pilot program. So I said, hang on. You want the kids at UW who are currently being assaulted to report these hate crimes to a hotline that doesn't exist yet. That is the last time Brianna Aho ever responded to one of my requests, I believe, except one time where she got mad at me and demanded a correction. That's it. So, gee, I can't imagine why they don't respond to my requests anymore, because I call them out on their nonsense. So, what happens? This thing goes live on July 1st, but it doesn't really go live on July 1st because what happens? We called it and it still wasn't active. Days go by. Then when it finally goes active, what do we find out? It's just a recording telling you to go to the website and then enter your stuff over on the website. So we entered our stuff over on the website. Now, I remember I was doing this daily for a while, but what's funny is clearly these responses are not coming in sequence. The first thing I filed was for Cam Higbee. I said, you have these people who assaulted him because he's a conservative journalist or because he is perceived as a conservative journalist. And nobody did anything about it. Seattle police didn't arrest anybody. Nothing happened. And at that point, his attackers had been identified, but still weren't arrested yet. Now, I know I filed other ones, but I don't remember all the ones I filed because I think I did it for a month straight. I think it was just file to mess with these guys. And I said melt the lines or, overwhelm the databases or whatever it is, the servers. Today, I got an email back from the Hate Crimes and Bias Incident Hotline. Now, this is for one of the anti-Semitic things I reported, but it's from the Attorney General's office. Hi, Ari. The Hate Crimes and Bias Incidents Hotline received your request for support about a reported hate crime or bias incident. We help connect people around Washington State who have experienced an act of hate or bias to support and resources. Stop. So you're telling me this is better than 911, which can deal with it instantaneously. I had to wait over a month for this stupid email that's going to connect me with resources? Wow, I feel so seen. So what resources does it connect me? Now, this must have been one of the anti-Semitic things I submitted against a Democrat, right? This or some leftist activist. Based on the information you gave us on your online telephone form, based on the information you gave us in your online form/phone call, we have some thoughts about where you may be able to get the help you are looking for. It sent me to the Anti-Defamation League. Sent me to the Anti-Defamation League. Yes, I am sure that the organization that refused to do anything when I got death threats on me and my family, I am sure they are going to be so much help right now. Really? They're a mouthpiece for the Democrat Party. That's who you're sending me to? They also include the Jewish Federation of Greater Seattle, which is yet another mouthpiece for the Democrat Party. And you're sending me over to these guys? We hope the information is helpful. If you need more help, please feel free to call us back. If you experience a different active hate or bias, you can make another report by calling us at the same number or submitting a report, and they give the Attorney General's website for the hate crimes hotline. All this thing is so that you can report people you don't like to up their statistics. There's nothing behind it at all. This is literally for statistical purposes only. It's a complete waste of taxpayer money. It's a complete waste of time. When we come back, my friends, looks like the Trump administration and the RNC are taking some interest in Seattle. We'll tell you what they're looking into with a representative from the RNC when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Well, my friends, we are at 200 days of the Trump administration. And guess what? Democracy has not ended yet. In fact, the only things that are getting better here in Washington state is when the federal government actually is helping us out. And it's rare, but we appreciate when that happens. However, there's some other blue jurisdictions just like ours where the federal government is doing all it can to help residents, starting right there in the swamp of Washington, D.C. Joining us now to discuss, senior advisor to the RNC, Danielle Alvarez. Thank you so much for being with us today.
It's great to be on with you.
We love having you. So let's talk about this. We have constant crime problems, homeless problems in Seattle, but we know we're not the only blue municipality. I can't speak English on a Friday. We know we're not the only blue municipality that has these kind of issues. San Francisco, Los Angeles, but most notably Washington, D.C. We had that bad assault of one of the Doge staff members this week, and now President Trump is saying, if you guys don't clean up the streets, we're going to do it for you.
That's exactly right. You know, it's such a shame with all the great things that are happening in this country as a result of President Trump and Republican leadership, right? We're 200 days in and America is back. Things are better than ever. But unfortunately, in blue states and blue municipalities, we're still seeing issues as a result of failed leadership. You know, it's been a while since I've been in Seattle. I'm born and raised in Florida in the Sunshine State. And I remember the last time I visited Seattle, my husband and I were driving around and we just saw so many homeless encampments. I mean, it was really sad. We saw individuals defecating on the street, you know, shooting up needles. And it's not too dissimilar from Washington, D.C. I lived in Washington, D.C. for about 2 or 3 years, not too long ago. And it was really difficult. You know, I lived in the Navy Yard, and I used to walk my daughter, who's now 5. At the time, she was 1 or 2 years old. And we used to have to pass 2 homeless encampments to go to the park. And we lived in a fairly safe neighborhood, again, the Navy Yard in Washington, D.C., but there was an issue of a carjacking, 13, 14-year-old girls who carjacked an Uber driver. It resulted in the Uber driver's murder. I mean, you just stated the Doge employee who was assaulted, beat up. So President Trump has brought crime down, but we really need to focus on these blue municipalities in backing the blue and in giving them the tools to enforce the law. And then when they go to court, making sure that these judges apply the law appropriately.
So I'm doing a little bit of future predicting. I hopped in my DeLorean earlier this morning. I set it to about a year from now. And what you're going to see is you're actually going to see crime stats going down. You're going to see drug overdoses going down. You're going to see all that stuff going down, even in these crime-ridden blue municipalities, because the Trump administration is kicking out all the illegal immigrant criminals. And my bet is all these blue cities are going to be taking a victory lap without realizing what they're actually saying. Would you agree?
Gosh, I hope that that's the truth. I mean, the reality is that President Trump is taking the right steps to bring down crime rates, especially with securing the border. We know that we're at, I believe it's several months in a row, the 3rd month in a row, where we have had 0 illegal immigrants released into the interior of our nation. We know that that's the complete opposite of Joe Biden's failed administration. We know that fentanyl is being curbed. We know that we are going against the drug cartels who were sex trafficking, human trafficking, drug trafficking, but there's still more work to do. I mean, my husband was a law enforcement officer in Florida, and I remember when we moved to D.C. for those 2 years, he said, I can't be a police officer here. I said, why, honey? He said, because they don't back the blue. Washington, D.C. does not support law enforcement officers. And I think that that's what happens all across the country in blue states and blue municipalities. So there's only so far that the federal government can go. It's why elections matter. We have our midterm elections coming up, and up and down the ticket, we obviously have the highest turnout and always see folks excited to vote in a presidential election. But in midterm elections, for local races, city races, county races, municipal races, we need to make sure to go out and vote with conviction, because we still have issues locally that the federal government can't necessarily take care of. Certainly things trickle down from the success of President Trump, but we need to make sure to support him and to elect good conservatives up and down the ballot.
We're talking with Daniela Alvarez, who's a senior advisor to the RNC, and I'm really glad you brought up the midterm elections because, as we saw from the primary election results here in Seattle, the progressives slash socialists slash communists, and I don't say that in exaggeration, I say that because that's how they identify themselves, are running away with most of the elections. Is the White House, is the RNC concerned about what they're seeing in these blue cities and blue states, where this socialism influence, which was already there in a lot of places like Seattle, but now because of New York, Mamdani's model is being copied in other places? Are we concerned that the Democrat Party is just going to be replaced by the Socialist Party? And then what you've got is Republican running against socialist, and that his message might be resonating, that message of Mamdani, free stuff for everybody.
You know, I think Mamdani is an interesting case. I was in New York recently, and I was being presented data by someone who said it was a lot of young men who voted for Mamdani, which was really shocking to me. And I have to look into that data a little further. What I think is happening in the Democrat Party is so many Americans are leaving the Democrat Party because it's just not the Democrat Party of the left. And I'm always really cautious when I talk about Democrats. When I say Democrats, I'm broadly talking about Democrat elected officials, not Americans who maybe registered to vote independently or Democrats, because I don't think the Democrat Party represents them anymore. And so what we're finding is they don't have a natural leader at the moment. They tried to put AOC and Bernie Sanders out there. It didn't really work. So now they're talking about bringing out Nancy Pelosi. But then you're seeing these individuals who are so far left and extreme, like Jasmine Crockett or Cory Booker, who pitched a fit on the Senate floor. And what it proves to me is that in this vacuum of leadership, they're moving further left. But although the Democrat Party may be moving farther left, our country certainly is not. We're seeing in the polling and in the data that our country believes that we are headed in the right direction, that this president is keeping his campaign promises. I mean, what a novel concept that someone would make promises on the campaign trail and deliver them in 200 days in office. So I don't think that the Democrat Party resonates anymore. I think what we saw in New York in that data that I was being presented is that it was such a low turnout election. And again, that's the problem with the midterms. There are such low turnout elections because you don't have those big top of tickets. You won't have President Trump at the top of the ticket, that it becomes very low turnout. So I'm going to make a shameless plug. Everyone who is listening, please go to GOP.com, because we can only be successful in these midterms with volunteers. Please go to GOP.com. If you have $1 to spare or an hour to spare, get involved. It's the only way that we can be successful and turn things around, even in the deepest of blue areas.
Danielle Alvarez, senior advisor to the RNC, thank you so much for joining us today. Really do appreciate it. And thank you so much for keeping an eye on what's going on out here when there's so much across the rest of the country that could be monopolizing your time. Really do appreciate hearing from you about Seattle, because sometimes we feel very alone out here.
Well, you are not alone. The GOP stands with you, and President Trump is certainly trying to turn this country around. And thank you, as always, for having me.
Danielle Alvarez, thanks so much for being with us today. We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.
Educate yourself, you fool.
On the Ari Hoffman Show, Talk Radio 570 KVI.
Believe it or not, the mascot of the Kraken almost getting eaten by a grizzly bear is not fake news. Young Zach, what do you got for us today?
It was just Ari Hoffman's fantasy. He said, is this my dream come true?
Oh, that's funny. Very good. Yes, would have been fun to watch.
Because you wish death upon that mascot.
Oh, that mascot, worst mascot ever. Yes.
There is a person in there.
That's true.
So let's see. So Ari Hoffman advocates for death, horrible death. It's like, yes.
Death. Horrible death.
I want to see that man torn asunder just so that I can see the gooey innards inside the Bouy.
The gooey of Bouy.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
It means different things at different times.
Sure does. Well, these are the times, so life is good there.
What do you got today, Zach?
Speaking of the times, let's start
what color would that be once that bear kind of tore open the Bouy suit? Like
blue.
Well, exactly. A nice shade of purple by the time he was all done with it.
Oh, no.
Gooey.
No.
Juicy.
What's red, white, and blue? The abandoned teeth of Bouy. Bouy or whatever.
Yeah.
Please shut your face. Bluey is a national treasure.
It's not our nation. He's not even a treasure of this nation.
Hey, we stole him fair and square. All right, Zach.
Cultural appropriation.
There you go. What do you got today?
Well, you said the times. We'll start with the hard times. The heavy.
Is there any other kind?
Not in this economy.
Satirical website, The Hard Times.
Yes.
The heavy hand of government is only good when it does things I like. They also wrote, punk traveling abroad knows only how to say, nice shirt, name 3 songs in 6 languages.
Very good.
But I want to go to some local news. After seeing the King County election primary numbers, it's clear to me that Republicans can't even win secondary elections. Someone had to say it.
Oh, no.
Someone had to say it.
Oh, no.
Golly.
Yeah.
Amazing. All right, we'll go to the Babylon Bee. Female umpire ejects player for something he did in her dream last night.
He knows what he did.
I don't think he does.
No.
Yes. I don't think he does. Who knows what he did?
Nobody.
Also from the Babylon Bee.
Welcome back to the show, Hank Williams Jr. Thanks for coming, Hank.
Well, finally, it's not being clouded by honks. And I think we're going to be honk-free, but Mike will find a way.
Yeah. What else you got?
This one also from the Babylon Bee. Trump just watched new Superman, and now he's on the roof with a red blanket tied around his neck.
It's amazing how he's able to navigate that sloped roof there, Zach.
The press corps was just waiting for Superman. Funny you mentioned. Well, yeah, you already did. Go see Daughtry at the White River Amphitheater next Thursday. He's opening for Creed.
I like that we're all mumbling 3 different songs,
but everybody knows what we are humming. And
everybody knows.
Yeah. That too.
Oh, my gosh.
We did the same thing in the 90s with Pearl Jam.
All right, everyone sing your favorite Mammoth song. Exactly.
Very well done.
Mammoth is opening up for Daughtry, who's opening up for Creed. And no one knows who they are. So
I'm with you. Okay.
I'm going home.
What else you got?
After going to the White River Amphitheater.
He corrected us at the last time I saw that concert. He's coming home.
He's coming home.
He's not going
He's not going anywhere.
He's coming home.
Yeah.
Anyway, just to set the record straight on Daughtry's hits.
No fake news.
While we're here, when are you giving away tickets to the...
They've already been given out.
Oh, well, so much for cross-promotion with the morning ride. All right, well, that's fine.
We gave them away. You had your chance. You blew it. And, you got to buy them like a chump.
Wow, now you're just purple chum in the middle of the river, torn apart by a cocaine bear. Bouy versus cocaine bear.
Now that's a fight I'd pay to see.
You almost saw it for real. That actually happened.
Weebish shows the young Zach's were over the cocaine bear. Imagine if that had been me saying to you guys, hey, watch this. The guy's going to die in the mascot costume. And you guys are going to go, Ari, we're tired of watching your dead videos.
Once again, real guy in there. Real person in there. Yeah. Speaking of, now that we're completely derailed, did you guys see that in Canada, a bear broke into a house but ran into a Pomeranian, as the tweet says, with attitude? And basically, it's this adorable bear, not unlike the one that was pursuing Bouy in that river on that fateful day. In Vancouver, the bear snuck into an artist's home looking for some dog food, but he didn't expect one thing. Inside was a Pomeranian named Scout. Scout charged at the intruder and chased him out, barking nonstop to make sure the bear didn't come back.
Well, yeah, it's a Pomeranian.
Exactly. As the young Zacks would know from tiny yappy dogs. But a security level God, to which Bouy from the verified Bouy account says, I'm looking for a Pomeranian.
I'm back on Team Bouy.
That's very good. Did you guys see the video out of the summer camp in New York with the bear and all the kids are watching it out of the bunks?
Yes.
No, yes? No? Yes?
I did not.
Okay. It's nuts, Zach. Basically, all these bunks are surrounding a main quad area. But what happens is, this bear is wandering into bunks or stuff, and this one kid who's totally oblivious starts walking in where the bear is, and they're all screaming to him. The camp had to release a statement like, we called in wildlife and everybody's fine. It was that bad.
Should have called in the Pomeranian.
Yeah, you should have.
Oh, man. Well, I saw this story, speaking of semi-local stuff, this one's from King 5. Wine sales slump hits Woodinville amid statewide decline. Funny enough, they hit their peak during Kamala Harris's visit.
Very good.
And I know we hate the needling, but this one was good. This one's from the needling. Good space guy names Great Space Gal, successor to intergalactic political campaign empire.
Oh, yes. I love that.
I will take this moment to say, I don't know about the station, I don't know about the show, but the segment of Fake News Friday endorses Good Space Guy for whatever the hell he wants to run for.
Yeah.
We always do. We love Good Space Guy. I didn't see
give a man a chance.
Yeah.
You know?
By the way, he gets more votes every time.
Yeah.
That's right. One of these days, he might actually place. There you go.
One of these days, he might get an initiative passed, too.
Wow. Shots fired.
Sorry, Mr. Haywood.
What else you got, Zach?
A couple more from the Babylon Bee. You already kind of said it, but Secret Service in awe as Trump walked on a moderately sloped roof. Wild. And the last one from the Babylon Bee. Democrats declare gerrymandering bad until they need to gerrymander again. Also, gerrymander.
There it is.
Oh, man.
Darn near pushed her into a different legislative district, am I right?
You've been workshopping that one. I
was
like
off
that.
the dome.
I like that this gerrymandering has gone so far to where they're going to gerrymander the district so far that it's back to the way it was before they even started the gerrymander. It's like, how did we get here? This is not where I parked my car.
And come see gerrymander open for Mammoth, open for Daughtry, open for Creed.
Oh, very good. Very good. Excellent. What else you got, Zach? That's
Nothing.
it. You're done.
Nothing.
Oh, thank you, Zach. You can listen
I
to
think 6 feet is too far gone.
You can listen to Young Zach with Phil on the morning show from 6 to 9 a.m. every single weekday right here on Talk Radio 570 KVI. When we come back, final hour free for all, plus your chance to win more fantabulous prizes. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.
Zach, can you take me out with a honka honka? It's for my friend John in Auburn. His children are very sick. They need the clown honka honkas.
Oh, it's for clowns.
Yeah.
Just for you, John. Hope your kids are listening.
Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show's final hour free for all. Your calls, your texts, your thoughts, your stories, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up at 5:45, your chance to win fantabulous prizes, including a $50 Daniels Broiler gift card, plus so much more. But before we get to any of that, I saw this article sent to me by somebody from the Seattle Times today, and I just started laughing. Here's the headline. Ready? 3 challenges UW's new president faces as he takes the helm. Just 3? Just 3? I wonder what are the 3 biggest problems he faces. All right, this is by Paige Cornwell, who's a staff reporter over there at the Seattle Times. New University of Washington president Robert Jones now leads a school, and Seattle's largest employer is UW? Hang on a second. A college is Seattle's largest employer. Is that because you chased out Amazon? Is that why? So, gee, I can't understand why you guys have budget problems. Because a public-funded university has more employees than any of the companies, any of the massive tech companies. Oh, what tech companies? You scared them all off to Bellevue, and now you're going to scare them out of the state. UW is the largest employer in Seattle? Okay, we'll come back to that. That's weathered several turbulent years of money problems, protests, and a pandemic. No, I'd say it weathered several terrible years of bad leadership, but okay. He took over at the start of the month, and many of the issues Jones faces were inherited from retired President Anna Marie Cauchi's decade-long tenure and typical of a public university. Okay, I like that they're trying to cover. Typical of a public university. No. Listen to these problems, and you tell me how many of them are self-imposed. Enrollment changes. Well, when your curriculum, etc., you're going to have those problems. Financial challenges. Okay. Well, when you have enrollment problems, you don't have as many people paying tuition, you're not getting as much money for students from the federal government, and concerns about staff and student well-being. Subtle way of saying the protesters are violent on campus. But he's also taken the helm amid the Trump administration's unprecedented targeting of higher education institutions. It's not unprecedented. We know exactly why he's doing it. He's doing it because you guys let a bunch of terrorists take over your campus. They targeted people on campus. So Abraham Flexman, a UW professor of global health. Oh, can't wait for this one. It's the challenges that President Cauchi has been facing down for the last year. And that's what our new president is going to be stepping into. She's done a lot to really hold the line. What? She literally caved to a bunch of Hamasniks on campus. She literally destroyed a college sports division. This is all self-imposed mess. There's a picture in this article of her with her office packed up in boxes. I've never seen a sadder sack picture in my life of her standing there. It would be better if they had the place on fire behind her like in an action movie, because I love seeing the protagonist walk away from something they destroyed in the background. Federal policy has exacerbated ongoing problems like funding and introduced new ones, like the unpredictability facing international students about their visa statutes. No. These are all laws that the federal government should have been enforcing this whole time, and now you're mad they're actually enforcing them. Nandana Jaydeep, who's president of the Associated Students of the University of Washington. Sure, let's hear what the college kid has to say. Right now, the campus environment reflects both uncertainty and resilience. With ongoing concerns about federal policy changes and shifts in education funding, many students are understandably anxious about the future. Well, you should only be anxious if you're an illegal alien who's here for all the wrong reasons. What gives me hope is that student leaders and administrators are all ready to work collaboratively to navigate these challenges. Here's a look at 3 challenges identified by UW leaders that Jones now faces. Okay, let's see what the UW leaders came up with. Protests, anti-Semitism, and Islamophobia. Where's the Islamophobia? I saw your little report. I read your little report, and I still don't actually see it anywhere. You guys talk about all these incidents, haven't seen a single video from a single one. But okay, let's go with that for a second. The university has seen protests and counter-protests since October 7, 2023, cross-border Hamas attack that triggered a war with Israel and continued Israeli attacks on Gaza? That's a hell of a way of saying the worst terrorist attack, the largest pogrom on Jews since the Holocaust. But sure, let's go with that. Protesters set up a tent encampment at the UW Quad in May of 2024 for nearly 3 weeks. Hang on. You guys left out a few things there. You forgot the Hamas rallies on campus, the rallies for dead terrorists, the vigils for dead terrorists, and them taking over multiple buildings and multiple areas of the school before then. But sure, let's start in May and ignore all the things like the takeover of the University Bridge, takeover of the administration building on campus in December of 2023, the rally for Hamas on campus 4 days after the attack. Let's leave all that out. Sure. For nearly 3 weeks before reaching an agreement with administrators that included in part scholarship funding for Palestinian students displaced from Gaza. So you want to bring the terrorists to America. Good. So you mean when the university administration caved to the Hamasniks? Okay. The university in January entered into an agreement with the U.S. Department of Education following a federal review that found UW generally didn't take responsive action to discrimination complaints. UW noted the agreement didn't constitute an admission of liability, noncompliance, or wrongdoing by the university. Would you like to know the problem with this paragraph? They don't mention when in January. Right before Biden left office, Biden's Department of Education made all these BS agreements with all these colleges that had crazy violations of the Civil Rights Act and lawsuits and tried to sweep it all under the rug and made all these agreements where they didn't actually have to do anything. Trump comes in and Linda McMahon comes in and says these agreements are absolute nonsense. You have to actually fix your campuses. But the way the Seattle Times frames this, they're trying to make it seem like, what do you mean we did anything wrong? UW already complied with all this. No, guys, that was before the inauguration. In May, 31 protesters were arrested after they occupied and allegedly vandalized? I'm sorry, allegedly vandalized? You have $1 million worth of damage there. They did. Oh, it just spontaneously combusted. All those machines there. And vandalized a new UW engineering building, damaging new manufacturing machines valued at $35,000 to $120,000. The protesters called for the school, wouldn't you say the vandals? Why are they still protesters? Called for the school to cut financial ties with Boeing, a major supplier to the Israeli Defense Forces, and end what the group called a targeted assault on them and other protesters. 21 UW students were suspended. Well, that targeted assault seems like you kind of brought it on yourselves. And by the way, what targeted assault? Nobody had been punished up until that point. In fact, one of the agreement sections in when UW caved to all their demands was nobody gets punished. No charges have been filed, though UW police continue to investigate and meet with the King County Prosecuting Attorney's Office, the office spokesperson Casey McNerthy said last week. In response to the protest, the Trump administration announced that it called a review of anti-Semitic activity at the University of Washington. The investigation is ongoing. UW international students continue to face unknowns with the Trump administration's revocation and reinstatement of some student visas and plans to aggressively revoke visas for Chinese students. Quote, students don't know what's going to happen to them. Are they going to have student visas that allow them to study? Are they going to be able to travel to visit their families? If they speak on something, are they going to get in trouble for what everyone thought was protected free speech? Well, first of all, study your law. You guys aren't citizens. You don't get the benefit of our Constitution. But on top of that, how many of them came to this country to be spies for the communist Chinese government? How many of them came to this country to shill for Hamas? How many of them are here for all the wrong reasons? So if you go around shilling for a terrorist organization like we've seen actually happen at the University of Washington campus, where they're literally giving out T-shirts, selling T-shirts, celebrating October 7th, literally giving out Hamas propaganda, yeah, I can understand why your visa might be in trouble. On UW Seattle campus, international students make up about 14% of the student population. About 8% of the UW students are from China. Now, it's one thing to come here for a better life, which I totally get. You want to get away from the Chinese Communist government? Fine. But why should we have you here if you're going to take that knowledge back and help an enemy of the U.S.? Approximately 24 UW international students and recent graduates saw their visas revoked, along with thousands across the U.S. in April. Their statuses were restored weeks later, and the Trump administration is blocked from revoking statuses while a lawsuit moves through the court system. But unpredictability has stoked fears among the student body, said Ryan Wickland, a UW graduate student. As president of the Graduate and Professional Student Senate, they've got so many organizations on campus, no wonder they need all these employees to become the largest employer in the state. Wickland said he's heard from several students who are afraid to leave the U.S. for the summer to visit family because they were worried about their visa status or saw their grants paused and didn't know what that meant for their academic future. Hang on a second. As I said, Homeland Security grants were paused. I know this because a few nonprofits I work with were affected. It was reviewed. They were given back. It's fine to do reviews of these things. They happen all the time. What are you complaining about? Budget cuts. UW's budget crisis is looming as state budget cuts are compounded by federal cutbacks. The university has had 178 layoffs, 104 full-time positions permanently or temporarily moved to part-time, and furloughs. Stop. They did that in advance of the cuts. They did that beforehand. They were worried about the cuts, especially because they know they're that the Trump administration has them dead to rights on all the federal stuff. They did that beforehand. Plus, they're the largest employer in the state, in the city. Sounds like you guys need some cuts over there. The university will see an effective 6.5% reduction in state funds, a combination of an overall of 1.5% cut by the state legislature to higher education institutions, and a drop in the state's share of UW staff salary increases. In a May town hall about UW's budget, now retired Cauchy warned cuts could lead to larger class sizes, longer lines to speak with an advisor or counselor, and more job positions left open. I'm not seeing the problem here. UW expects hundreds of millions of dollars in cuts to federal research support from the National Institutes of Health and other funding sources. Some grants have been terminated, then reinstated. Correct me if I'm wrong, but weren't they at the forefront of the COVID response? How'd that work out for everybody? Mary Claire King, a UW geneticist, saw her federal funding thrown into limbo. For 7 months, her lab waited for $1.8 million in already authorized NIH grant funding for her research into genetic influences on schizophrenia. When the funding never appeared, she called and emailed but got no explanation. Then one day in July, the funds just appeared in her account on a federal website that administers grants. So what you're saying is they were reviewing these things. I'll say again to my Republican friends, because we should be honest about what's happening here, if you guys actually want to cut stuff, you have to actually cut things. You have to do rescissions. Money that is voted for by Congress, it's a law that somebody gets that money. If you guys want to cut things that you deem waste, fraud, and abuse, you have to actually cut those things. Jones will also navigate the university's relationship with more than a dozen unions representing various groups of students. Wait, students get unions now? Why? This is nonsense. Professors and staff, those relationships have been rocky, said Tricia Schroeder, a president of Service Employee Union 925 with tense contract negotiations and several instances in recent years of unions going on strike. SEIU, oh, of course. 925 is UW's largest union representing education and public service employees. I got a question. If there are a whole bunch of lefties up top, do you think maybe they're having budget problems because the unions are demanding too much money? That's just a hunch. That's just a hunch I have, and now they can't afford to pay them anymore. Well, when you keep negotiating these contracts up and up and up and up, yeah, I totally get it. Do you think this new president is up to the task? Do you think UW is actually going to change direction? Haven't seen anything so far. I've seen some changes in language when the building was vandalized. Finally, Anna Marie Cauchy was saying the right stuff. But the question is UW going to pick a more sane path? Things may be calm right now, but you know why they're calm right now? Because everybody's sleeping on their mom's couch for the summer. They're not on campus. The real question is when September comes and those kids are back in classes, does all this insanity ramp up again? Because who knows what's going to be going on in the Middle East? Of course, we know that here in Seattle, Washington, we affect what happens in the Middle East. Vandalizing a building, which is going to teach Boeing engineers how to design airplanes, that's going to fix what's happening in the Middle East, right? Causing over $1 million of damage to that building, attacking Jewish students on campus who have nothing to do with Israel whatsoever. That's going to fix what happens in the Middle East, right? Meanwhile, there was some good news this week. U.S. Senator Tom Cotton is calling on the Internal Revenue Service to launch an investigation into the Council on American Islamic Relations, otherwise known as CARE, citing what he described as the group's deep ties to terrorist organizations and public support for acts of terrorism. In a formal letter sent to the IRS Commissioner Billy Long, Cotton urged the agency to examine whether CARE's activities are consistent with its tax-exempt status under Section 501c3 of the Internal Revenue Code. The senator argued that CARE's ongoing conduct, including affiliations with groups like Hamas and the Muslim Brotherhood, violates the legal and ethical standards required for nonprofit organizations. CARE, which presents itself as a civil rights group focused on advocating for Muslim Americans, was identified by the Justice Department's Office of the Inspector General as an unindicted co-conspirator in the landmark United States versus Holy Land Foundation terrorism financing case, the largest terrorism financing trial in U.S. history, as part of the Muslim Brotherhood's Palestine Committee, an entity formed to support Hamas in the U.S. According to government evidence, the case linked CARE leaders to Hamas, a specially designated terrorist organization. In November of 2023, CARE's national executive director and co-founder Nihad Awad said he was happy to see Palestinians breaking the siege and throwing down the shackles of their own land in reference to October 7th. The comments led the Biden administration to remove CARE from its White House task force on anti-Semitism. Why they were there in the first place is absolutely beyond me. Cotton wrote, "These connections are not merely historical footnotes. They demonstrate a continued pattern of behavior that should disqualify CARE from receiving the financial benefits of nonprofit status." Let's not forget, a lot of the people who are affiliated with CARE in our area here are the people who are encouraging all those school walkouts and all the targeting of kids on campus. It's really, really messed up. So the question is why these guys still have nonprofit status when they have all those ties to terror. Now, mind you, this is not the only conflict going on in the world. We know that President Trump today signed the deal negotiating between Armenia and Azerbaijan. I can't even say it right today. Negotiated another peace plan. We'll just put it that way today. So he negotiated another peace plan today, which is what, 5, 6? He's averaging one a month right now. But now Trump has announced that he's going to be meeting with Russian President Putin in Alaska on August 15th. Is this the time of year where you can walk from Russia to Alaska? Is it the time of year where the land bridge is frozen up there? But yeah, they're going to have that meeting. Are we about to see the end of another conflict in the world right now? It'd be fascinating to watch the left go nuts because, all right, let's try and do this from the leftist perspective. What's it going to be? Well, it only worked out because Trump colluded with Russia, because him and Putin are friends. Otherwise, you wouldn't have gotten a peace deal. Wait, what did I just say? Watching them lose their minds if there's an actual peace deal between Russia and Ukraine is really going to be something. I mean, really, really something. So that's going to be next Friday they're supposed to meet. The question is if that meeting's actually going to happen because Putin has reneged on so many agreements beforehand. I don't think anybody should get their hopes up. Lots more to discuss as the show continues, my friends. When we come back, housing prices in our area are stuck. So's the housing market. We'll tell you what's causing it. But first, Todd Herman's Daily Thoughtcast right now on the Ari Hoffman Show. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, coming up at 5:45, your chance to win fantabulous prizes during our Good News giveaway, including a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card. Yeah, another reason. Always keep your radio tuned to 570 KVI. Left on your dial, always right on the issues. You can also stream us at KVI.com, download the KVI app, and, of course, subscribe on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. Also, just a reminder, check out KVI.com when the show's not on the air, because we've got all these great articles up there from all your live and local hosts and our producers up there at the KVI website. So make sure to check out our fully staffed website over there at your leisure. So, got this one over here, which is from Como News. I thought this was a story we did yesterday. I really thought it because it is so identical to it. Police are investigating yet another smash-and-grab style burglary at a West Seattle smoke shop this week. Seattle Police Department said that officers responded on Friday to an alarm on California Avenue Southwest. When they arrived, they found a gold Kia, last time it was a black Kia, left at the scene after it had been used to crash through the front of the business. The car had been reported stolen from Seattle. A witness told officers he saw 6 masked men arrive in 2 vehicles at the business. 1 suspect drove the Kia into the building. Then 5 of the suspects went inside and started grabbing merchandise while the 6th stood lookout. Now, the last one, they weren't actually able to get into the building, but this one they were. The suspect sped away from the burglary in a silver vehicle before officers arrived. This is the second smash and grab at a West Seattle smoke shop this week. The first happened the day before, also on California Avenue Southwest, just a couple blocks away. That time it was a stolen black Kia, which was crashed into the front of the business. But the suspects were not able to get inside, as I mentioned. Edgar Sanchez, the manager of the West Seattle smoke shop, said that while the thieves weren't successful in getting inside the store, the cleanup will be costly. He said it sucks every time. We do one thing and then it gets broken down, and then we build it up again and it gets broken down again. He said this isn't the first time they've been targeted in the past. He said it's about the 10th time it's happened already. It's unknown if the 2 cases are related. Something tells me they probably are. But this is the kind of stuff that happens around here all the time, because the criminals didn't get the memo that now police can pursue you for stealing a vehicle. Thank you to the Democrats who gave criminals the ability to steal vehicles without any repercussions whatsoever. So much so that the criminals knew about the law and one time called 911 when the police were pursuing them to tell 911 to have the cops back off because it was illegal for them to be pursuing them. Unbelievable. Seems like every problem around here is caused by bad policies. Today's problems are yesterday's solutions, as we say around here all the time. Jonathan Cho had a story out. Bellevue has had its first murder of the year. Wow, got 8 months in. I don't think Seattle got 5 minutes in before having its first murder of the year. But got to August. So Jonathan Cho says a manhunt is on for a homeless murder suspect with ties to Plymouth Housing. Isn't Plymouth Housing the one where one of the homeless clients, the unsheltered neighbor clients, stabbed one of the social workers to death just as the Seattle City Council was passing a vote to replace police officers with social workers? Yeah, pretty sure it was. Plymouth Housing also has posted a whole bunch of anti-police stuff. So we're talking about the controversial Plymouth Housing porch-like complex in Bellevue. The one that the residents said, how are you going to make sure there's no crime over there? Now you got a murder there. Cops say 28-year-old Samuel Hitchcock killed a 54-year-old man at Southeast Eastgate Way last week. While the motive is unclear, witnesses say the victim was sleeping in the bushes of an office building, which is right next to the homeless campus. Plymouth and Porchlight continue to attract all kinds of crime and open-air drug use in this area. It also triggers most of the 911 calls in the area. Shock, shock. So he posted an update yesterday. He says cops are asking for the public's help to keep an eye out for Samuel Hitchcock, the prime suspect in the case. He's been spotted in the Seattle area since the body of Jason Clark was discovered on June 30th in the Eastgate neighborhood. Meanwhile, citizen journalists with the Facebook group Factoria looks like, well, I can't say the word on social media, but you know which one I'm talking about, are now looking into the case. They have some new insight on the suspect and the victim's connection to Plymouth Housing and Porchlight Homeless Complex, which is right next to the homicide scene. So literally killed right outside where this controversial place is that attracts all kind of crime. Shock, shock. Well, I thought they're just our unsheltered neighbors. I thought they all just got fired by Jeff Bezos from Amazon, and that's why they're living on the streets. Do you remember when 60 Minutes came out here and Anderson Cooper tried to prove that that's what was going on behind the homeless situation, that it wasn't drugs and alcohol, and yet everybody he interviewed, it was drugs and alcohol? I remember this couple. They had this little kid with them, and they were living in an RV or something, or living in a tent. And they had family members they could go to. They moved out of the family member's house with the little kid so that they could go live on the streets, which is crazy. It turns out mom and dad had drug problems, and yet they didn't want to talk about it. Didn't want to talk about it at all. Preferred to skip that relevant data. Do you remember the guy who was sleeping? He was like a post office worker. No, not a post office worker. He was employed somewhere. And he was sleeping on the street, and he admitted he had an alcohol problem. He was sneaking sherry and sneaking cooking alcohol. That's what the guy was doing? Oh, crazy, crazy stuff. We go to the Warrior Injury Law text line. Michael from Camino Island is weighing in on our previous guest, the one from the RNC, and says, Ari, my problem giving to the RNC is that I've lived here my whole life, and the Republican Party has become no more than lip service over the last 10 years. Why should I pay for that? I need that for the 9-cent tax increases for the gas I need to get to work. Dude, I hear where you're coming from. I really, really do. Tell you what, Michael, we're going to be talking with Jim Walsh. He's the GOP chair in the next segment. We're going to be talking with him about what Glenn Morgan revealed about all these illegals voting here, and now they have the proof for it. So we're going to be talking to him about that and talking to him about things locally, how things turned down the primary, because I'm looking at these primary numbers, and they just ain't good. They just ain't good. It looks like everybody's diving into socialism. Tell me, when has socialism actually fixed anything around here? Anybody? Can anybody name that? You had Kashama Sawant in office for years. Let's see what her proposals were. Increase the minimum wage. That led to less working hours, lower wages, and less workers, and more automation. Well done. Bravo. She did the Amazon tax, the Jumpstart tax. That was her baby. It made Amazon leave Seattle. She was cheering the defund the police. She worked on defunding the police. And how'd that work out? Crime went through the roof. Oh, but she's a Marxist, right? What's the difference between socialism, communism, and Marxism in terms of the left? They're all the same family. They're all tied together. And that's what they were pitching. Give me one example of when socialism has actually worked. Oh, it just hasn't been done right yet, right? That's what they're going to tell me? Lots more to discuss as the show continues. Jim Walsh from the GOP will be swinging by to tell you about the initiative to make sure we have voter ID here in Washington, but also weigh in on Glenn Morgan's reporting of illegals voting in our elections. 1 out of 7 here in Washington. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. My friends, I got to say, the more and more we dig into what's going on with the voting system here in Washington, I've always been one of the people who says, look, it may be happening, but we don't have the proof that illegals are actually voting. We have a lot of assumptions. But now there's a lot of stuff rising to the surface, which is why it is so important you sign the initiative forms that are going around right now to guarantee that we have voter ID for our elections, because recent reports are saying as many as 1 in 7 people here in Washington are not even citizens of this country or should not be voting in our elections, and that is a major, major problem. Joining us now to discuss on the Warrior Injury Law studio line, the chair of the Washington State GOP and Representative Jim Walsh. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Oh, it's great to talk to you, Ari. It really has been quite a summer. I mean, these summers are supposed to be slow in politics and policy. This one has been just rapid fire.
I think it's because it resonates so much with everybody, because now it's kind of confirming biases. So the right has said this has been going on for so long. The left has been saying, no, you're crazy. We have the most secure elections. And now it looks like that narrative is being blown out of the water.
That's right. The most secure election narrative is cherry-picking elements of our election processes, which are secure, but ignoring the kind of elephant in the room, or maybe it's a donkey in the room, which is we have no security on who can register to vote in Washington State. None. And we've been talking about it for a while, and you'll hear the left say, well, first their position is, well, no one is improperly registered to vote. Well, we've shown there are at least a few. And then they change their argument. Okay, well, no improper voter can be shown to have changed an election, which is kind of a tortured argument. And now we're showing, no, this could be 1 in 7. I mean, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of registered voters who are illegally registered in this state. And now they're just on their heels. They don't know what to say. Now they're just saying, well, you're making numbers up. And we're like, no, here are the numbers. And the number actually could be larger.
Right. Why don't you just do this? Why don't you guys just say, give us a day, 2 days, a week with 5 or 6 people. All the data will stay in-house. We'll do all the processing in-house and everything to analyze these things so there's no risk of Social Security numbers getting out or anything else like that. Why not just say, you want to prove that we're lying and we're wrong? Give us 5 days with auditors with this stuff.
Well, that's a great idea. And, Ari, I think it's happening anyway. I mean, the effect is there are people, you can call them whistleblowers or you can just call them concerned citizens, involved in our election processes in this state who are saying, hey, wait a minute, there's something wrong here. And this is an organic thing that's growing from the county election offices up to the state, the Secretary of State's office, and we're just getting reasonable people saying, hey, we are not securing our election processes in Washington. We're signing up too many people through automatic voter registration, either at the Department of Licensing or the Department of Social and Health Services, and there's no quality control here. So this is what the numbers are showing, and it's gaining momentum. It's gaining traction. And like these things go, Ari, once a few people start talking about it, more people become bold enough to talk about it. And I think that's what's happening right now.
I think you're 100% right. And here's something else. Let's look at the results of the primary that we just had. Not really encouraging for anybody who's moderate, common sense, Republican, conservative. In fact, the only people who seem to be doing well in this thing across the board are the socialists, at least in Seattle, King County area. There's a few exceptions here and there. And for me, my contention has always been, well, guys, if we're not doing enough ballot harvesting and if we're not showing up to vote, because I had no proof to the contrary, then that stuff we're going to keep losing elections. Now it seems as if we might be playing not with one arm tied behind our backs, but with a completely stacked deck. And it seems like this is the kind of thing that's going to discourage people from voting, because what we're seeing on social media all the time is, why bother voting? The Supreme Court's going to overturn what we say, or our vote doesn't matter anyway. But now it seems like the system itself may be completely broken.
That's correct. And it's all kind of a psychological operation, a psyop. How do you really control a democratic process? You discourage people from participating. And the left always accuses conservatives and moderates of suppressing the vote. We don't suppress the vote. We're trying to get more people to vote, but legitimately, legally, properly. But it's projection. I think they're chess move, and some of them, Ari, are purported to be big chess players, is to discourage people who disagree with them from voting. And that's what this poorly managed, poorly secured voter registration process does. It discourages people. So we have to shine a light and give people something to be encouraged about and to vote.
So we've got the initiative that's out there that's collecting signatures right now. If you haven't signed it, you should definitely do that over on the GOP, the Washington State GOP website. You can find out where there's places where you can sign this thing, how to do it. But aside from that, are you in touch with the Trump administration? Are you in touch with the RNC? Are you in touch with different states? How do we approach this? How do we fight this right now? Because we've got an election a couple months away.
Yes, and yes, Ari. There is no doubt that the U.S. Department of Justice is aware of this situation with voter registration in Washington, is aware that there are systemic problems in a lack of security of who registers to vote. There are also issues that have to be addressed by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. They have some oversight of certain elements of election processes, but it will primarily, I think, be a matter of the U.S. Department of Justice and particularly its Civil Rights Division. Because, Ari, this sloppy management of voter registration is a violation of every legitimate voter's 14th Amendment constitutional right to have their vote count and have their vote not be diluted in its effect by a lot of illegitimate voters and voter registrations. It's that dilution that happens when we're sloppy about who's registered to vote. That's the constitutional issue, and the reason that the Civil Rights Division of the U.S. Department of Justice will likely be the lead on any action here. And our state's Attorney General, Mr. Nick Brown, and our state's Secretary of State, Mr. Steve Hobbs, need to be prepared because they will be on the firing line when these issues go to court.
It's absolutely crazy to me because what they should say is they go, okay, let's do a whole audit. We're going to prove you're wrong. We're going to prove you're conspiracy theorists. That's the easiest way for them to get out of this whole thing. And the fact that they won't do it kind of shows you what's really going on. Representative Jim Walsh, chairman of the Washington State GOP, thank you so much for working so hard because this stuff exceeds what you should be doing. So thank you so much for helping all of us and fighting so hard for all of us. Really do appreciate it.
To win local, Ari, to win our school board races, to win legislative races, we've got to think big and we've got to fix big because the issues are big.
That's what it looks like right now from all the stuff that you and Glenn Morgan have been revealing. Thank you so much for joining us today. Only good news to wrap up the show. Your good news giveaway, your good news headlines, your chance to win a $50 Daniels Broiler gift card, plus so much more. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. It is time to feel good as we wrap up another amazing episode, another amazing week of the Ari Hoffman Show right here on Talk Radio 570 KVI. And before we get to our good news giveaway or our good news headlines, I just want to say thank you to all of you in KVI Nation, Ari's Army, the Big Mike Militia, because you helped yesterday during our Wishes in Flight effort to collect airline miles for the Make-A-Wish Foundation for Alaska and Washington. And, all right, let's go back in time for a little bit. So last year when we did this, we started the show and about 3 million miles had been collected. And then I said, I bet we could double that by the end of the show. Everybody thought we were crazy, and we did 6 million miles. Well, this year I saw the goal was originally 4 million, but then they bumped it up to 6 because they were doing pretty well. And I said, well, we could beat that, right? And I said it would be great if by the end of the show we could get 7 million miles. Well, unfortunately, we didn't get 7 million miles. Instead, we got 8.2 million miles by the end of the show. And as we were updated this morning, that went to 8.5 million miles to make wishes come true for the Make-A-Wish kids. And that's because of you guys. That's because of our partners. That's because of you guys. And we just want to take a minute and say thank you. We also just want to remind you that the website is still open over the weekend. So if you haven't gotten in on this and you want to help out the Make-A-Wish Foundation for Alaska and Washington, which means these are kids locally who are going, you can go to givemymiles.com. That's givemymiles.com. And you can donate over there today. But once again, just a big, big thank you. Also, a big thank you to Mike for putting together such compelling interviews and programming yesterday for the show. Really appreciate that. But thank you to everybody out in the audience who helped make those kids' dreams come true, those kids' wishes come true. We really, really do appreciate it. So thank you all very, very much for that. Then we have one story we didn't get to yesterday of one Make-A-Wish kid. This one from Como News. There are two topics that 13-year-old Nevaeh Holm knows impressively well. First, the book series, Keeper of the Lost Cities. She can easily rattle off the titles of 11 book series in order. Her second area of expertise is the chronic disease she's grown up with, cystic fibrosis, which creates a thick, sticky mucus affecting her organs and bones, causing respiratory issues and regular infections. She has regular treatments and rounds of medicine, which is why she became a reader, because she says it's an escape. Make-A-Wish wanted to take away some of that stress. They offered her a wish, and she decided to meet a celebrity or a pop singer or an athlete. Instead, she wanted to meet Shannon Messenger, who's the author of her favorite books. They flew to San Diego, stayed several nights in a luxury hotel, went to a beach and the San Diego Zoo, but the highlight was lunch and a museum tour with Messenger. Nevaeh said, I'm a really big fan of history and ancient artifacts. I had no clue that I was going to be meeting Shannon and going to the Balboa Park Natural History Museum, which is the setting for the opening of Keeper of the Lost Cities, one of the books in the series. Make-A-Wish also coordinated the flights, the rental car, and made sure the medical equipment made the trip safely. And unfortunately, right now, there's no cure for cystic fibrosis, but with advancements in treatments, Nevaeh should live a long and full life, giving her plenty of time to reread her favorite books from her favorite author. She said she's already read the entire series 7 times. So if you guys want to help out and make more wishes like this come true, make sure you head on over to givemymiles.com. That's givemymiles.com. It's going to be open for the rest of the weekend, and you can help. And wouldn't it be great if we hit 9 million miles? Wouldn't that be really great if it wasn't just, we hit 7, like we said on the show, but we hit 9 million miles? Guys, if you have those miles you can't use and they're going to expire, just head on over to givemymiles.com. That's givemymiles.com. And once again, thank you to everybody who helped out yesterday with the financial donations, with the money donations, with the miles donations. In fact, Mike, I don't think we ever got the money totals. We don't even know how much money got brought in. We'll check that out for Monday so everybody has it. But you guys really did an incredible, incredible job. And as always, KVI Nation stepped up for things like this. So just a big, big thank you from me and Mike and everybody here at KVI for doing such a great job and helping us out with that. And as a reward, we're going to give away fantabulous prizes. So here's what we're giving away today. We are giving away a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card. Daniel's Broiler has been a Seattle favorite since 1980, features USDA prime steak and other specialties, including chicken and fresh seafood, as well as a selection of high-end spirits, wine, and cocktails. Daniel's Broiler is open now in Bellevue, downtown Seattle, Leschi, and South Lake Union, with dine-in, takeout, and delivery. Check out danielsbroiler.com to reserve a table, place your takeout or delivery order, and more. We're also giving away a copy of 7 Steps to a Successful Retirement by Brian Evans of Madrona Financial and CPAs, and a bonus of the Little Red Book of Retirement. Learn how to design your retirement to support your quality of life for 30-plus years from Brian Evans of Madrona Financial and CPAs, a local company working to help you grow deep financial roots so future financial storms don't blow your life savings away. Visit MadronaFinancial.com for more information and discover how you can create a rooted wealth plan today. All you have to do in order to win these fantabulous prizes is be caller number 10 at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Caller number 10 will win a $50 Daniels Broiler gift card, a copy of 7 Steps to a Successful Retirement, and a bonus of the Little Red Book of Retirement by Brian Evans of Madrona Financial and CPAs. Phone lines are open now. Give Mike a call for your chance to win at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Well, my friends, that's going to do it for us today. But fear not, we'll be back on Monday with more insane stories, more exciting guests, and, of course, more giveaways. You are listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.